We will explore why feedback matters so much in Danish companies, and how it has become a quiet but powerful advantage in their business culture. When people think of Denmark, they often focus on high living standards, strong welfare systems, and innovative design. Yet behind many Danish success stories lies a distinctive way of working, organizations that are flat, collaborative, and strongly oriented toward continuous dialogue. In this context, feedback is not a yearly formality, it is an everyday management tool and a shared responsibility. To understand why, we need to look at three elements of the Danish corporate environment: trust, equality, and learning. First, trust is foundational in Danish workplaces. Leaders are expected to be accessible and transparent, and employees are assumed to be capable, honest, and self-driven. Feedback in this setting is less about control and more about enabling autonomy. A Danish manager doesn't provide feedback simply to evaluate performance, but to ensure that an individual has the clarity and support needed to deliver results. This aligns with a broader societal norm in Denmark. People tend to trust institutions and each other, and they expect to be trusted in return. When feedback is delivered in a high-trust environment, it is easier to accept it as constructive input rather than as criticism. People are more willing to speak openly about what is working and what is not, whether in a project team, a cross-functional collaboration, or a leadership forum. Second, equality plays a central role. Danish companies are known for their relatively flat hierarchies, where titles matter less than ideas and contributions. Employees often address leaders informally, challenge assumptions, and participate actively in decision-making. In such a structure, feedback flows in multiple directions, from leader to employee, from employee to leader, and across peers. Upward feedback is particularly important. Leaders are expected to seek and act on input from their teams. For international companies operating in Denmark, this can be a cultural adjustment. In more hierarchical settings, feedback tends to be top-down and sometimes infrequent. In Denmark, withholding feedback can be seen as a missed opportunity to improve the collective outcome. This does not mean that every conversation is critical or confrontational. Instead, feedback is often woven into daily interactions: a short reflection after a meeting, a direct but respectful comment on a draft, or a brief check-in at the end of a project sprint. Over time, this normalizes feedback as an integral part of work, rather than a special event that happens only during annual reviews. Third, Danish companies place significant emphasis on learning and continuous improvement, both for individuals and for organizations. Many firms invest heavily in employee development, from formal training programs to mentorship and on-the-job learning. Feedback is the mechanism that connects these investments to actual performance. Without feedback, it is difficult for employees to understand how their skills and behaviors translate into business outcomes. With it, they can see where they create value, where they need to adjust, and how they can grow into new roles. This has a direct impact on engagement and retention. Employees who receive clear, actionable feedback are more likely to feel that the organization cares about their progress and is willing to invest in their future. For companies competing in Denmark's tight labor market, especially in knowledge-intensive sectors like technology, life sciences, and professional services, this can be a decisive factor in attracting and retaining top talent. At the same time, feedback helps organizations learn as systems, not just as collections of individuals. Project retrospectives, for example, are widely used in Danish companies to identify what went well and what should change next time, without focusing on blame. The goal is to improve the process, not to punish people. When this mindset is genuine, employees become more willing to surface issues early, share lessons learned, and participate actively in change initiatives. For organizations undergoing digital transformation or operating in fast-moving markets, this ability to learn quickly can be a critical source of competitive advantage. However, the Danish approach to feedback is not without challenges, especially in international or culturally diverse teams. Direct communication, which is common in Denmark, can sometimes be perceived as blunt or overly critical by colleagues from cultures that value indirectness or high levels of politeness. Conversely, more indirect feedback styles may be seen by Danes as vague or unhelpful. Leading effectively in this environment requires cultural awareness and deliberate communication. Danish leaders and HR teams increasingly invest in training to help managers deliver feedback that is specific, behavior-focused, and anchored in shared goals, while remaining sensitive to different communication norms. Similarly, Global talent working in Denmark often benefit from explicit guidance on how feedback is used, what is expected in team discussions, and how they can voice their own perspectives constructively. For organizations looking to strengthen their feedback culture in Denmark, a few practical principles stand out. First, make feedback continuous rather than episodic. Encourage managers to incorporate short, focused feedback moments into regular one-to-ones and team interactions, rather than relying solely on annual performance reviews. Second, ensure that feedback is tied to purpose. When people understand how their work connects to the company's strategy, customer outcomes, or societal impact, they are more likely to see feedback as relevant and necessary. Third, create psychological safety by modeling openness at the leadership level. When leaders acknowledge their own areas for improvement, invite honest input, and act on what they hear, they signal that feedback is not a threat but a shared tool for growth. Finally, equip teams with simple, practical frameworks, such as agreeing in advance on feedback rules, focusing on observable behavior, and balancing reinforcement with constructive suggestions, so that feedback becomes easier to give and receive in everyday work. In summary, feedback matters in Danish companies because it is deeply embedded in a culture of trust, equality, and learning. It supports autonomy, accelerates development, and helps organizations adapt in an increasingly complex business environment. For leaders operating in Denmark, strengthening feedback practices is not just a human resources initiative. It is a strategic lever that can improve performance, innovation, and employee engagement. For individuals, embracing this culture means being willing to both give and receive honest input, with the shared goal of doing better together. As you reflect on your own organization, consider how feedback is used today, and what would need to change for it to become a genuine driver of growth in the Danish context.